What's up, guys? Welcome back to Jay Plays Keys. Thanks for joining me. It's been a while, but hey, I'm going to come back and record this video because I think it's important, especially right now. If you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, see the channel continues to grow, which is great. And I hope to get a couple more tutorials out pretty soon. But today I wanted to talk about a topic that I think is important to a lot of church music departments, and that is team dynamics. How do you build some good team dynamics within the worship department, within the music department, so that whenever you're trying to, give that praise, give that worship, it's very evident that, everybody's on one accord, everybody's in agreement, and we all have this goal, which is to create a dynamic, awesome worship experience. And so I have a couple thoughts about that, and I wanted to share. And please feel free to get in the comments and give me your thoughts as well, because I know we got a lot of musicians in this group, a lot of maybe some ministers of music, some directors, some pastors, or whatnot. So I'm interested to hear what everybody's take is on this. But for me, I think creating that really engaging worship service, that's a team sport, right? You can have a good singer, a good lead singer, and the team behind them, the choir, the praise team, the musicians not really be on one accord, and it won't work. You can have an excellent piano player, top notch, but if the singers, if the voices aren't right where they need to be, if we're not getting our transitions right from the A part to the B part, we're not paying attention to our signals, the service isn't gonna yield the fruit that we want, right? Because it's not just about showcasing the talent of one individual, right? It's about how do we create this atmosphere of worship so that everyone that's involved can get what they're looking for. I will say, like, I noticed a couple Bible verses here, like Amos 3:3 says, how can two walk together unless they are agreed, right? And I think that applies here. Like, how can we all, as a music group, as a praise team, a choir, how can we, sing these songs and create this worship service unless we're agreed on, how we're going to do that, right? And unless we're agreed on, what the goal is. And there are some things that happen when we get it right. And I think Acts 2:1 kind of shows what happens when we get it right. And that's the day of Pentecost, right? And it says, when the day of Pentecost was fully come, and they were all in one accord in one place. And ... after that, that's when, the Spirit shows up. There's fire, there's all this good stuff. But because everyone was in one accord about what they were doing at that moment, the worship they were bringing forth, that the Spirit actually showed up physically in that time, right? And of course, today we don't necessarily see it physically, but we see manifestations of that, in 2024. So that's what happens when you get it right is, the Spirit comes and things happen. So team dynamics, or lack thereof, in the worship team directly impact the flow, directly impact the quality of the service, people's ability to focus, and things like that, right? Some members may be more seasoned. Some team members, church members, might not be impacted, right? They're able to come to church, have the worship experience regardless of what goes on in the front. But let's be honest, like, everybody is not there, right? So what we do in the front as worship leaders, musicians, whatnot, has an impact on some of the folks that are coming into the church. It's just how it is. We don't want to be a distraction, right? We want to just be that conduit, that kind of helps aid that worship. At the same time, we are called to be excellent, right? Colossians does say, 3:23, whatever you do, do it heartily as unto the Lord, not unto men, knowing that of the Lord shall you receive the reward, for you serve the Lord Christ, right? So we don't want to get up there looking crazy. We want to look like, we've been here before, like we're on one accord, like I said before, right? Because we are called to that excellence, especially when it comes to serving in this capacity. So what are some ways that we can do that with our team, right? With our worship team? I think number one is accountability, right? And by accountability, like, I don't mean it in like a heavy regulated, sense of the term, like you might have at work or the military or the sports team. Basically, all I'm talking about is just making it clear what every team member is responsible for, right? And usually it's going to be the minister of music or the choir director or whatnot, that has to, kind of set the tone, set the vision, and say, hey, here's what everyone's responsible for. We're not just going to show up every week and act like it's week number one, day number one. We'll never get anywhere like that, right? Sopranos, altos, tenors, you guys have to practice your parts during the week. When you come to rehearsal, should not be the first time that you're hearing those parts, you're hearing this song. You got to already kind of have that so we can get started and be productive, right? If that's an expectation you have, let's say it out loud, right? We're not always going to be perfect, but say, hey, here's the goal, right? Another example of some accountability: hey, musicians, you got to know the song, right? That should go without saying, but we got to practice the song, know the basics. We might end up getting to rehearsal and change the key, change around the flow of the song, drop the intro, add an intro or whatnot, but you got to know the basics of the song. Again, when we get to the rehearsal is not the time to be learning these things. Like we have to work as a team at that point, right? So musicians got to learn their part before they come to rehearsal, right? Singers got to learn their part before they come to rehearsal. So when we come, we can be together and again on one accord and figure out how we want to present this on Sunday or Saturday, whatnot. Maybe timeliness, right? Be on time. Like, is this something that we say, or are we just hoping people show up, to rehearsal on time? Are we hoping people show up to sound check on time or to a service on time? Or are we going to, ask folks to take accountability and say it during rehearsal, send it out during the week. Hey, everybody, we got to be there at 10:30 on Sunday for sound check. Church starts at 11. Let's make that expectation clear. And also have some decorum when we're on stage. Like, are we gonna wear the same thing, black and white, whatever? Are we gonna rock a certain way, left and right? Are we gonna be chewing gum? Are we gonna be talking? Are we gonna laugh when something happens? Like, let's talk about these things. Like, hey, we're all accountable. We all have different responsibilities to make this thing happen and be successful. And I think that's on the leader, who's usually minister of music, to kind of make that clear to the whole crew, right? And when there's accountability and everyone's kind of playing their part and everything, over time you'll see that show up in how well you interact and how well of a team, a well-oiled machine you look like on when it's game time, right? When you go to your event, when you go to service. Similar fashion to accountability is roles and responsibilities, right? Who's responsible for selecting the songs each week, and who gets input? Like, let's not show up every day and choose songs the day of, right? Or choose songs in rehearsal. Like, who's responsible for giving it some thought and sending it out to everyone so they can practice during the week, right? And get to know the song when we come. Who's going to lead the song? And this gets a little bit territorial sometimes, right? So sometimes people say, hey, that's my song. When we sing that's my song. And I don't necessarily know I agree with that. Like, some people do, resonate with a certain song for a reason, or the way they sing it resonates with the audience. But what I mean is, who's going to lead, who's going to be in that lead position, and are they practicing, their ad libs? Are they making sure they know how the transitions are going to go for the song? And are they prepared to actually lead the song? They're going to show up and say, oh man, I didn't have my tea and honey this morning, I can't lead. Like, that's going to really throw a wrench in everything. Or, hey, we can't do this song, I don't feel like leading. And it's like 5 minutes before church starts and you got to choose a different song. Like, who's going to actually be responsible for leading each song each week, right? Which musician is going to be kind of like the lead musician, right? That's important. So sometimes it's the piano, sometimes it's the organ. He's usually one of the two. Rare cases, I see, the drummer can lead the whole worship service from the drums, right? Like, who's going to be calling out, transitions, take it up, go low, all this good stuff. Like, again, just talking about this ahead of time so that everyone's kind of rocking the same way. And another one I wrote down, like, who's got the ability to tell the music to pause? Now, this is pretty funny, because I have seen places where people get a little offended. Like, you keep telling the musicians to pause, and they're looking around like, man, why are you telling us to pause? We're trying to play, right? Or maybe they just don't pause at all, and then the singer is like waving their hands trying to get their attention. Like talk about that ahead of time, right? Because that's how you end up looking like a team, is that you're on one accord about how this stuff is going to go. It's not to say you have to script it. We just have to be on one accord and know what our transitions are, know what the realm of possibilities are, so we can, as we flow, we might have to make some audibles, but we know how to flow together, right? And this isn't going to be perfect. Like most of the churches, we're not, professionals, right? Your singers and everybody's not like getting paid to do this as a full-time job. So it's going to take some time to get there. Like if you try to institute these things, accountability and roles and responsibilities, and you haven't done that before, it might take 6 months to really get into the groove, right? Because you're not practicing every single day, like a basketball team or something like that. My final thought is just spending time together, right? I think the most in sync I've ever felt in a praise team / church musician role is when I was spending a lot of time with my fellow musicians, basically team building. And it wasn't even on purpose. We were college, had a lot of time on our hands back then, right? So it was easier. But spending time together, rehearsal was a good time to spend time together. I know everybody doesn't have time to do that, but that's a great time to like riff, get to know each other, understand how each other moves, how the singers like to sing, like what their favorite parts are, things like that. Breaking bread, sharing a meal. For some reason, like when you break bread with somebody, like it almost feels like we're kind of bonded a little bit, right? And you do that sometimes, and you kind of feel better. You give each other benefit of the doubt. You feel closer, things like that, and maybe like some intentional activities, like hey, let's all go bowling on before rehearsal, or instead of rehearsal we'll go bowling, or something like that, like or just things like that. We're going to attend a concert together, whatnot. The more we spend time together, the more cohesive the team is, right? And it's easier to do those roles and responsibilities and stuff like that when we're spending time together. We trust each other. So those are just my thoughts on team dynamics in the music department and how it can affect the church and how we can be better. I'd love to get your feedback as you listen to this and kind of heard my talking points. Like, where do you agree? Where do you disagree? What did I not talk about? Like, what have you found works for your teams that could be helpful? Go ahead and share it in the comments section. And again, like I said earlier, please go ahead and like and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. And that's the end of the show today. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one. Peace.